All right. Namaste, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's session. Um, as part of this Sangeeta Satsanga series, we've been, trying to, usually feature, students and, other people that have been learning, dedicated students of music every month. Trying to do this, in a monthly frequency. This month, for a change, I thought we will do a discussion with Vidvan Kamalakiran Vinjamuri. We are very honored to have Kamalakiran as part of this discussion series. So, the topic for today's demonstration and discussion is Dhanamma family compositions, the compositions that have been popularized by the Dhanamma family. Now, Dhanamma family refers to, as you all would know, it refers to Veena Dhanammal and her both ancestors as well as people that came in her family after her. When we say Veena Dhanammal, we mostly associate the whole family with Veena Dhanammal and after, right? But it is important to note that several generations before her were also great musicians in their own right. So, I just wanted to start this session by giving a few points that I feel like, in the common discourse and common discussions about Dhanamma family music are not very, very strongly highlighted. I just wanted to, discuss at least 4 points. And then, the structure for today's discussion will be that, after this initial introductory remarks, we will then present a few compositions and talk about them. In particular, we want to highlight how Kamalakiran has been spending time to imbibe those and translate those into the violin. And first of all, we should of course I'll give the introduction about his journey into this music a little bit later. Anyway, so first point I wanted to highlight that I feel is reasonably, I would say, not represented in the common discussions that I hear, and I would put that foremost in the whole in the whole discussion, is that I feel that this approach and style of music is very much conducive to yeah, I think Shreyas will take care.
Oh.
Yeah, he's the host. Yeah. Anyway, so this style of music and approach is very conducive to the musician's spiritual growth. And the reason I say that is that the focus of this entire approach, if you see, is on the Shadja, on the Shruti. There is so much emphasis on staying on Shruti for this particular approach. And not only that, if you look at the descriptors for how you describe the style, and you listen to lecture demonstrations or of many stalwarts who pursue this approach, you'll hear things like calmness. Okay, you will hear things like silence, no drama. Okay, it is very shuddha, very pure. Okay, and you listen to adjectives like there is a focus on sukhanubhava and all those things. In fact, if you think about it deeply, all of these descriptors are also applicable to the Almighty or the Supreme. And if you look at even Tyagaraja Swami's compositions or our saints that have described Supreme and Almighty in their own forms, they use the same word. Rama, for example, they will say he's Shantam, right? He's an embodiment of peace, which refers to calmness. Tyagaraja Swami or any other saints have also described the Supreme to be very close to silence, right? No drama, no action. It's very there is an element of silence in that music. About that supreme entity, and obviously the Supreme is a form of happiness, Paramananda, Sukhanubhava, Sukhi, right? That is how the Supreme or even Lord Rama is described by Tyagaraja Swami in many of his compositions. And likewise, other saints describe the Supreme in their own forms, but typically you will find the same descriptors. So that's those same descriptors apply to this particular style also, which is an important observation I wanted to make, which makes this approach very conducive to one's spiritual growth. So that was the first point I wanted to make. The second point I wanted to describe about this style is its closeness to tradition. Um, and so that it sort of brings in a sense of authenticity, in the sense that the family members, Dhanamma family members have learnt from composers directly, or from direct or very immediate disciples of the composers, which sort of brings in a little bit of an authenticity to the whole system and to the whole pathantra that they have sort of like passed on from one generation to another. And they have been very particular about maintaining that pathantra. That is one thing to be, they held it in very high regard, like not changing sangatis, not making unnecessary changes to anuswarams or gamakams and so forth. And in that regard, this whole approach gives a very deep sense of the historical perspective to ragas. So for example, the way Saveri is handled, or the way Kannada is handled by this family in their compositions, it's very unique, and so it gives a very nice historical perspective. So I would say that musicians in their learning journey, in the journey of learning music, it's very helpful for us to even if our pathantra is something different, it is always helpful to go back to this style and just listen to how they have presented it, because it sort of gives a sense for how things might have evolved over time. The third point I wanted to make, and it is very closely related to the first one that I talked about earlier, is the emphasis on musical aesthetics, and things like the proportion of gamakas, proportion of anuswaras, how to give those anuswaras, the roundedness of the gamakas. That is a very important element which you will see how Kamalakiran has sort of imbibed all that in his playing. And also so in many styles, in many musicians, we see there are a lot of like doshas, right? There are a lot of ways, there is a sense of when they open their mouth, it will sound like instead of gamakas they will put a lot of stress on the gamakas when they are singing. Those kinds of things won't be here. So they play all the family members, regardless of whether they were very good vocalists themselves or they had a good shariram. Regardless of that,
they had a similar sense of aesthetics.
They had a similar sense of aesthetic, and these are the common elements. Roundedness of the gamakams, and the sound of the syllables will be very like O will sound like O, A will sound like A, U will sound like U. So that they gave a lot of importance. So that that sort of helps in maintaining a discipline and control of the senses and the mind and all that, which again has a very close link to the first point about the spiritual growth of a musician, I feel. And so it's really important to note that one. The last point that I will make about this style is and something that we will discuss later as well, the ability to transfer the knowledge that one can gain from this approach across our musical sort of system that we have learned over time. This is a very important point, because in today's world and in today's times, very rarely are we able to like spend like 50 years with one guru, learning from one guru. My guru has done that. So my guru, Srimati Kalyani Sharma, she learned from Brindamma until Brindamma was 80 and she was like 50. She would go to live lessons class, like weekly or once, whenever she was in Bombay. Yeah. Even from her other gurus like K.S. Narayana Swami and so forth. But that is not the case today. We are not able to do that. Different depending on how our life proceeds and where we live, our geographical location and all, we tend to like learn from different people, and we also have the influence of lot of recordings and media and so forth. So with that perspective, if a musician can spend time with this particular approach, I firmly believe, with my own personal experience, and I think other musicians who have pursued this style will also certify that there is just a fundamental transformation in the way we think about gamakams, anuswarams, the way we think about ragas, how to approach the ragas, the connectivity between notes.
Even in Manodharma it translates.
And even in Manodharma, somehow it translates.
Yeah.
And without hindering the other things we have learned.
Yeah.
That is the beauty. It will just embellish the other things that you have learned. That's the point I wanted to make. So there is a value in spending time with this way of thinking. It's really a way of musical thinking, I would say. This approach. It's a very, very wonderful, and in that sense, this approach is sort of like an absolute approach, right? Because it has its its wings can spread far and wide in one's musical journey. So that is something to keep in mind. So with that background, one observation I wanted to make is that as we all know, Dhanammal was Veena Dhanammal. So she, her musical journey and musical aesthetic was firmly grounded in the way the Veena was played, and she had a very close relationship between vocal music and Veena, and even her family members that came later, like Brindamma,
they all played the Veena.
Yeah, they all played the Veena. They had a close relationship, but somehow over time it became more vocal dominated. But regardless, instrumental music also had an important role to play in that family's like music. For example, T. Visvanathan sir, he was a flute player, and he brought a lot of the aesthetics, the vocal aesthetics of their style into the flute. And then it is said that Parur Sundaramaiah, has spent a lot of time.
That's why their whole school has usage of anuswarams
Exactly,
and all of that.
Exactly. So, he has spent time with Veena Dhanammal and imbibing that style. But regardless, there is a huge, I would say, knowledge gap in today's musical knowledge system. Just like there is a gap in terms of understanding the history of ragas, or there's so many knowledge gaps. One big knowledge gap, I would say, is taking the Dhanamma approach to music and anuswarams, kamakams, compositions, patantara, and so forth, and applying them to instrumental music. I will start from the biggest gap, which is in the Veena sphere itself. Even though that style has sort of evolved from a healthy handshake with the Veena, somehow over time, that has sort of like dwindled. There used to be one Savitri Rajan, who I believe is a student of Veena Dhanammal herself, and there is a wonderful recording of Savitri Rajan playing Nadopasana on the Veena along with Muktamma.
Oh, wow.
It is definitely a conscious delight. Please spend some time.
It's on YouTube? Or?
It's on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
It is amazing to listen to how beautifully she has translated those vocal aesthetics on the Veena. It is amazing. It is just mind-blowing. So please do spend the time. But another important gap is on the violin. Where the translation of the musical aesthetic on the violin is definitely something that is sort of like lagging behind. It's slowly catching up. I know, for example, a dear friend, Shri L. Ramakrishnan, who has been, imbibing some of those techniques into the violin. After that, Kamalakiran has been spending a lot of time learning and trying ways to bring those aesthetic into the violin. So today's session will focus on his journey, and I think we have to note that it's still in process, like for everyone. There is an evolution process, and Kamal has been.
I think what's huge is that there's clarity on what needs to be done, at least.
Right.
Because if you understand so I learn everything through vocal, not through the violin. So if you understand it, then at least you know what you're trying to get to.
Correct.
Right. So then it's just changing different variables.
Correct.
Rather than just blindly following, like hearing and following. If you learn it vocally, then at least you have the sound in your head.
Exactly. And there is a big difference, I would say, right, from learning from someone rather than learning.
Of course.
Unlike other patantarams, to some extent you can
I think any patantaram, for the most part, you're only hearing what you are already used to.
Exactly.
So the way you'll replicate it is something that your mind translates it without you even knowing, right? So then someone has to point out, wait, this is how it's... Otherwise, you don't hear it. You only hear what your mind kind of translated.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, Kamal has been, learning these compositions for the last few years. So I thought it will be a nice time for us to sort of present his efforts in that direction. So with that background and introduction, we will first present the Yadukula Kambodi Varnam, Atatala Varnam. Many of you might have already heard it. There are recordings of Brindamma and Muktamma and that family present this Varnam. It's a delight for musicians, right? I mean, Yadukula Kambodi first of all, and then an Atatala Varnam in that. So,
and it has all the elements of a Varnam, like Karve, Ladaswaram, like all of those things are there. It's incredible.
So for those who have not heard it before, I'm pretty sure you will enjoy this to the extent that we are presenting it with integrity. We will first present it and then Kamal will explain some things. Pamagari ga sari kamala Samayamu Vega Samayamu Vega magari sani da sani ni da pada ma pada sa sa pa pa sa da pa ma ga sari ma ma pa samayamu vega All right. So Kamal, let us start with how you started learning this and what are the things that.
So this
you had
Varnam
to-
was probably one of the harder ones that we've learned. I think couple things in general, this approach in violin that I've noticed while I was playing. Even you'll see today, one thing is, as a violinist, we're prone to listening to so many renditions of one song. Not just this Varnam, but in
Right.
general.
Right.
We're also prone to playing so many styles, whereas the vocalist is, stuck with their own style. So the first thing that's hardest is to shift mindsets. And not even shift mindset, but make an approach so central to yourself so that no matter what you're doing, when you go back to playing, or to give a solo, this is my approach. Most violinists have a problem with this, with the exceptions of MSG Lalgudi, like that.
Right.
That generation.
It takes time to get there.
It takes a lot of time to get there. They also, I would argue, even when they accompanied, they were more they took the musicality, but their approach was always, you can always tell if it's an MSG or a Lalgudi.
Right.
So the hardest thing with this approach is to imbibe it enough that it becomes second nature. And I think this is even true for vocal. When they all sang at Brindamma and everyone in that family, I don't think they gave so much importance to each detail while they were singing it. It was just such a second nature for them, right? I don't know if we're there yet. We're all trying to get there.
Right.
So that's the first thing. Second thing, because of that violinist mentality, violinists tend to lack discipline when it comes to patantaram. Meaning we already have a kind of a mix of everything.
Right.
But let's take this Sangati, the Samayamu. That's what it's supposed to be. The first time I played. Now you can ask, is that wrong? That's a question we can ask, right?
Right.
I guess it's not wrong. It's still Yadukula Kamboji. Everything is
Within scope.
Everything is within scope, but it does some good to just follow a discipline. Then, if it's an intentional change, which it was not,
Right. Right.
it just kind of happened. If it was an intentional change, even then you can say, okay, is that needed or not? But it's always good to kind of follow a discipline. So I guess if I didn't point that out, many people wouldn't even know that was off. But
Correct.
it's just, I think even awareness of that is a big deal.
Correct.
To just be aware that, okay, this changed here, let me have like a discipline of following that.
Right, and some you have to keep in mind that music is an evolutionary process. So even within that family, over generations they have evolved and they have introduced some minor changes in gamakams and anuswarams and so forth. You can't say that even Brindamma herself has said,
Of course.
that her singing is not the same as Veena Dhanammal's approach. Because she had the influence of Kanchipuram Nayana Pillai, from whom she learnt and all that, right? So, things evolve over time. Vishwasar had his own approach. But, the general philosophy and, that is something we have to keep in mind. But still, the point of discipline is so important.
And it teaches us restraint. It's very easy to do. It's not easy, but there are so many sangatis you can do. But the amount of discipline this style gets, where you want to replicate it exactly as it's sung, that's a very good practice in general.
Very good practice.
Also great for violinists in that way, because we'll get used to it. And with this level of detail, it's very tough, because we are not only hearing it, but we're trying to translate it onto here. So.
Exactly. And even for vocal musicians, over time, as we start learning compositions and then we go on to doing manodharmam, the general tendency of the mind is to just be so focused on manodharmam, and which is great in itself, right? Manodharmam, expression of your personality.
But this will help the manodharmam anyway.
This one helps in manodharmam, but at the same time it helps in bringing a little bit of some I don't want to call it logic, because then logic would sound like it is forced into the manodharmam, too scientific. But I don't want, but some deeper sense of appreciation of manodharmam, where to stop. So for example, manodharmam is an expression of our jnanam or whatever that we have learned, right? So but there is also a question of like where to stop at some point, because otherwise like you'll keep just randomly building phrases and randomly doing things. But where to stop, that restraint sort of like is built through compositions. And how can you embellish the manodharmam with some special gamakams and phrases and anuswarams? For example, the third chittaswaram of this varnam, it has, so it is no karvai. In Yadukula Kambodi, it is very rare to come across that kind of those kinds of phrases. At the same time, you'll see that there are some phrases that are sung slightly differently, and that has been that this the musicians of this family, they have made sure at some point to incorporate those. For example, pada pa pa ma gari pa ma ma gari ma ga gari sa gari ri sa ri ma ga sa ri pa ma ga ma pa da sa ri ma pa da pa ma pa da sa ri sa gari ri sa da sa ni ni da pa ma gari ga sa ri ma pa samaya. In fact, that this is one thing. And da ni da pa ma pa da ma pa ma ma gari gari ga sa gari ga sa. So that gari ga sa அப்படி இல்லாம ஒரு gari ga sa ri ma gari, and then the sari mama pa பாடுற அழகு, the way that sari mama pa is sung, sari mama pa sa pa. So it sort of like opens your mind to a different way of singing.
On the
vibratos, of course. This
that's a very good exercise for violin too, getting that sharp vibrato,
right?
Where it should not be. It's the same thing in vocal, you would say. It cannot be ilama, that sharp vibrato.
Yeah. So that on that note, it has to vibrate. That is the definition of vibrato for this approach. And they've used that vocal technique in many of their compositions, like even that Atana compositions. So that ma vibrato is a very special thing about this.
It's also very easy to go wrong.
Very easy to go wrong, and we can tend to sing something like sari ma. That flavor of antaragandharam,
which should not be,
can easily slip in, which you have to sort of like really work and get the discipline, the control of mind, the senses and all, to be able to deliver on that.
The other thing about just in general the violin is you can't get so stuck on which note that you're playing.
Correct.
Which this is a little bit, because it's a varnam, it's a little bit easier, but in the next song, which is Sri Rajagopala, that's impossible. Like you have to. Already when you sing it, you can't do it, but when you sing it, at least Sahitya Maketi, you can just mimic the sound. Here we're like naturally violinists are translating into swarams, because we have to place it, right? So you don't know if many of these compositions, you don't know if it's ma, is it ga, is it pa, like what is the note that you're playing? Right. So the change of your mindset to just replicate the sound, it doesn't matter what note it is. That's kind of what I do now. I don't care what note it is really.
And that is what we are advised to do in this approach when we are learning in the vocal music as well. Just never notate it. So they never, and that family very rarely encouraged notation. Although there are T. Vishwasar of course wrote very detailed notations.
But he was able to understand it because he already had the approach imbibed. Right. If some other student looks at it, it's still going to be tough.
Right. And the thing is, like, his purpose for doing it was really to
propagate
transfer
the
it to in this country, right? So that was the thing. But the general advice that that family gave to their students was to refrain from notating and just focus on the sound and trying to replicate it. And in fact, Brindamma, in one of her there is an anecdote that she would say, don't record what I am singing, you don't notate what I am singing, I am willing to teach you 1,000 times even if you need it. So that was the integrity, that conviction that they placed on teaching also. Anyway, so
one more thing, the continuity that's played.
Well,
on
singing
vocal,
it is sort
it's
of
easier.
like, it is easier.
It's easier.
Over time we can learn to.
We have to change strings, right? So if I were doing like in the panna, if I do it on this string, then I can't do that slide.
So those things,
a lot of those things you have to like predetermine. I mean, if you learn it enough, I don't actually think about that much. I don't, but violinists typically would. I don't because I'm learning it vocally, so I know it.
Right.
I know what sound, so I can kind of determine it. But it's also very tough to play on one string. And so the precision has to be a lot more. And
actually, when you played that, one thing that came to my mind was that, common, I think even I am, I used to have this misconception that because you have to change the strings, some of those continuous phrases that are characteristic of this particular approach may not be suitable for the violin. But that is not true.
Yeah.
You can actually...
You just have to work hard.
You have to work, and you have to use your mind, creativity a little bit.
And the other thing is, a lot of it is illusion too. So when you come there, it's not actually which note, it's actually how much pressure you put on the bow.
See.
Because if you lighten the pressure, so like, where am I going? I'm losing pressure. So many violin, or at least I used to think it's a left hand issue, but it's also just as much control needed in the bowing, so that where you like modulate, where you take, all of that makes a difference in making you think that I'm doing what you're doing, but I'm actually doing something completely different.
So, I know we should go to the next composition for time's sake, but still, one point I want to, one thing we keep discussing during our sessions is for this approach, you have to, and of course the focus is on the sound, and you have to give an element of mystery. I keep telling, right? So that don't try to be so certain and so like exact, and that exactness we have to sort of like learn to give up a little bit as you start. So
which is harder on the
violin. Which is hard, right?
Because we're so used to.
So Thiru-Votriyur. You don't come to Sa, right? No. Just have Thiru-Votriyur. Tyaga. That even Tyaga.
Is it Da? Is it me? It's
Tyaga.
It's something.
Something in between, right? So
every part of that, even in Shri Rajagopala, now we'll see it in a lot of
that in a lot of things. Is it Kakali? Is it Kaisiki? Anyway, so with that we will move on to the next composition we are going to be presenting, which is Shri Rajagopala in the Ragam Saveri. This particular approach to Saveri is very unique to the style. Their patham is of course it has come through the Karna Parampara, but I will note after you listen to it and
we'll talk about
we'll talk a little bit about that composition of Muthuswami Dikshita Adita. Shri Raja Gopala Bala Shri Raja Shri Raja Gopala Bala Shringaralila Shruta Janapala Shri Ganya Dina Sharanya Dira 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 Dina Sharanya Charu Champakaranya Dakshina Charu Champakaranya Dakshina Charu Champakaranya Dakshina Charu Champakaranya Dakshina Dwarakapura Nilaya Vishishta Dvaita Dvaitalaya Mam Palaya Dwarakapura Nilaya Vishishta Dvaita Dvaitalaya Palaya Palaya Shri Raja Gopala Bala Shringaralila Shruta Janapala Shri Smeranana Sevaka Chaturana Narayana Taraka Divya Nama sa re sa pa da sa da mo da nari veshadhara vama bhaga murare Shri Vidya Raja Hare Shri Rukmini Satya Bhama Shruta Kambujaya Gala Nari Veshadhara Bhaga Murare Shri Vidya Raja Hare Shri Rukmini Satya Bhama Kambujaya Nira Sampurna Haridra Nadi Tira Mahotsava Vaibhava Madhava Nira Sampurna Haridra Nadi Tira Mahotsava Vaibhava Madhava Mara Janaka Nata Shuka Sanaka Janaka Veera Guru Gugamagita Rama Sakita Nira Sampurna Haridra Nadi Tira Mahotsava Sanaka Janaka Veera Guru Gugamagita Rama Sakita Shri Raja Gopala Bala Shringara Leela Shri So, there are a lot of observations to be made. You know, among the initial points I made early on in this presentation, the closeness to Shadjam.
Yeah.
You can see and pa, right? So, for example, in the Gamakams, wherever in most of the ragas that they have handled, where there is a Shuddha Rishabham or a Shuddha Daivatam, there will be some adherence to the Shadja. So, Sa Shri. So the proportion of Shuddha Rishabham
is much less.
Much lesser than what you.
Just like
even the ending of that Gamakam, they
ends
ended
in
on that Sa. So that is one thing to note.
Same like
for the and that proportion will be like very melodic. Like you see the if you were to draw one pictograph of all the Gamakams that they sing, by and large you'll find it will be like very circular, rounded.
It's also not B. It's not that.
It won't be on
B.
the beat.
It's like
Abdi,
not on the beat.
kuttu madippa, it will be like approximately, it will like, and then it will fall in place.
Work somehow.
Somehow it will just fall in place. There's a lot of that udukkal concept, right?
Which is again a hard thing for violin because it has to be, we're not putting thalam.
We are not putting
so
thalam, so you have to, exactly. And that is where we have to really, sort of place a lot of value on the method of teaching in this approach. I have heard this from my guru, even from Balu sir, with whom I have interacted so much. Repeated singing. They will just like sing along with the student, and that's how my guru also taught me, like with just repeatedly singing with her. So that sort of that helps in these kind of situations where even with, you don't need a thalam at all at the end. Like it will just sort of like get recorded in the mind like a stamp.
And Gokulana has been doing this definitely longer than me, but even when you sing it again, sometimes you find new things.
New things, exactly.
So today this happened again when we were singing this, the Murari. How much time
you can give
take
a few more
before you go to Sa, right?
Right.
That's something I kind of overlooked, and then I was like, oh, you can do this. So it's you always come across these kind of small things. Again, it's all just a discipline. One huge thing that took a big change of mindset for me is in D-Rag. So from Pa. Usually most violinists, and at least I would always do, even in Alapana, we're usually like,
correct,
but from Pa. And same thing. It's all from the Pa. Before we would be, I would always do that before. Now I can't undo this. This is kind of a way.
It is exact. But the way to think about it, Kamal, is that it gives an alternative way.
Yeah.
So it gives us, so this is how it helps us in Manodharma.
Yeah.
So then the moment you sing that one time, you sing it from Da or sing or play it from Da, then you can say, okay, when you're you can do that for Raga Alapna, Naraval singing. You can use those this is it's an eye opener, right?
Yeah.
These kind of gamakams. Anyway, even those ta sari ta ta nari ve nari sari pa ma. So that sari pa ma, those kind of phrases. And of course we have to, from this ragam, I think a big mind change for a lot of us.
Of course, the obvious.
The Nishadam, the way the Nishadam is handled in different places, and the Gandharam, right?
In a lot of these Deva Gandhari, Saveri, these types of ragams, they never elongated it too much. Nowadays, you hear a lot of like...
we hear that too much.
You don't hear that at all here.
Again, going back to the earlier comments, no drama.
Yeah.
There is no sense of drama. And that Antara Gandharam flavor, when it comes in the Shri Rukmini, how beautiful it is, right? After all the hiding of that Gandharam throughout the composition, that one place when you hear it, it is very beautiful. Also, in this style, a big mind shift is how they go to that Shadjam after giving all the powerful gamakams in the rest of the composition. Not only this one, in other ragas as well. So Neera Sampurna Haridrana Tira Mahotsava Vaibhava Madhava Mara Janaka Natashuka Sanaka Janaka Dira Guru Gugamagita Rama Sahita.
It's a silence.
Or they give one small silence before going to Sa, and you will see that artists like Ramnath Krishnan, who interacted with Brindamma a lot, he imbibed it in a lot of his singing. Not only this particular padam when he sings like Karubaru or something, but even other compositions or other like Manodharma when he does that.
It's so beautiful in Manodharma.
So
it also lets you align with the Shruti.
Correct. Correct. Helps you align with the Shruti, get back, get that composure back in place after all the hard work that an artist would do with gamakams or akarams and all that. So
of course, one of the hardest lines to play is like. That's so hard to play. I mean, it's now not hard because I've kind of sung it enough times.
Right, but even one thing to note there, of course, when they sing, it might be slightly different, but we have to be careful about the pause that we are giving. Vishishtadvaita has to sound like one word, but the musical phrasing is not so suited for that. So we have to make sure that we do
that. It sounds like one word.
Yeah. So
Vilaya
Vishishtadvaita
we can't do Dvaita.
We cannot do that. So even though musically it is not so well aligned for that, to make sure it falls in place, we have to make a small attempt, I feel, to get there. So likewise, even the Tiram Neera Sampurna Haridra Nadi Tira Mahotsava, instead of Tira Mahotsava, Mahotsava sound, that's the natural positioning. Anyway, so that was Sri Rajagopala in the Ragam Saveri. A lot more can be talked about.
You would see the same stuff you saw in Yadukala Kamalakiran, the Ma vibrato. After a while, that
vibrato.
The approach all blends everywhere.
Right. In fact, one thing I wanted to highlight, in one of our prior discussions about Saveri and also ragams like Purvi Kalyani, that the Spurita Gamakam versus
I guess.
Not in the composition, but in the ragam when we sing Sari Sa Ri Sa Ri Sa Da. The way of playing in violin, you have to do something.
Yeah, so versus, so one is more in Anuswaram, right? Versus
yeah,
where it's not with knee, but you actually have to lift the finger and put it back in time.
Right.
But it shouldn't sound like it has to be somewhere in between.
So that is where what you said earlier, the fact that we have to focus on listening to how it is being sung and then try to bring it in the instrument. That is a very important concept. And also even so when we are singing this approach in particular, some things that I had to change, like I had to bring in a little bit of change in my singing. So versus or a small, like
a little lift
or some stress we have to give on that note. So how do you bring that?
So versus and it's harder on violin because
it is again harder.
You can give a break with the voice.
Right.
You have to. I don't know where to give the break here. So which line of the song? You have to think about that a little bit.
Yeah. So some creative techniques need to be developed that way. But the focus has to be in trying to reproduce as much as possible. Wonderful. Anyway, so the next one that we will present is Begada. So today's night is going to be, I think, a lot of Rakti Ragams. We started with Yadukala Kamalakiran Saveri. The next one.
Maybe we should do another session where we do Every Chirira, all of
those other compositions.
Right. Saraswati Manohari.
Saraswati. Even Saraswati, we have to learn that, of course.
Isha Manohari.
Yeah, but they used to sing Saraswati Manohari also. That one we should, you all should learn that. Anyway. So this composition, Begada, it's a padam. So as very commonly it is known. This family was very well known for their exposition of padams and javalis. I want to offer just a couple of notes about padams in particular. I feel like a lot of the nuances and aesthetics that they brought into their compositions were sort of like originally developed for the padams, and they sort of like brought it back into these compositions, especially for these Rakti Ragams, because all of these are in Rakti Ragams, and they're in Mishra Chapu. They naturally lend to, you know, this kind
That
of
kind
like
of malleable
odikal-
singing.
Yeah, exactly. I like that word,
I like
malleable
singing.
singing.
Where you're not so rigid about anything.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just kind
yeah,
of
yeah. So it naturally lends to that thing. And if there is, you know, if there is a padam in a Rakti Raga, trust me, and if you can learn it, you know, our understanding of that raga, our approach to that raga will sort of undergo a nice change, healthy change. Is
and
how
that
I
doesn't
would like
mean
to.
you like forget all the other things. It's
Yeah,
just
it will help you.
Exactly.
It'll like embellish the other things that we have learned. So that is a beauty there. So this is in Mishra Chapu. In Begada, they have sung many compositions. Yarukagilum Bayama is what we will present now. And then there is Yala Padare, Shankari Neevu they have sung. They've also sung Idi Neeku, which is a javali. And then they've also sung Manasuna Nara, Balasubrahmanyam. Nadopasana, Muktama has sung it. So there are many Nipada Pankaja. That also they sing. But their padam has only fewer sangatis, but very Tyagarajaya Namaste. Yes, Tyagarajaya Namaste. Correct. So many Abhimanaman they have sung that as well.
It's a very that school is ragam.
Yeah. Begada is exactly that school ragam. Lot to learn from their approach to Begada. Anyway, so we will present this. And things to note among the things, you know, among the points I made earlier, as a vocalist, you know, some things that I had to learn to, you know, sort of as I was like working on these compositions and this approach was the enunciation of the syllables. So Shri Raja Gopala, Ra has to sound as Raja Gopala. Likewise in Yarukagilum Bhayama you will see they won't say Yarukagilum Bhayama, so they will just say Yarukagilum Bhayama.
Yeah, to avoid harsh sounds.
Avoid those harsh sounds. Even like that Summa Sollatum, Shusha, that sound is not something that they will give. So, you know, it'll be somewhere in between.
That's the other hard thing to do on violin, is sometimes it's very hard to make this hand independent of the left hand. So and when I go here, it's natural for me to put more pressure on the bow or to take off pressure. So to keep that continuity of sound is very tough.
Right.
So once you master the left hand, it's a whole other thing to master the relationship between the two.
Right.
That's really tough.
Right.
What I'm working on now more, because I kind of understand this movement, but to make it sound such that there's no bow bounce or no extra, all those kind of things are very tough.
There's no discontinuity.
Exactly. That's tough.
That's the harder one. And as we go to the more the advanced padams
and all, harder.
Like Ninujuchi or Payyada and all that, that'll be something to figure out. Yeah, it'll be
seamless bow changes.
Seamless
all of
bow
that.
changes. Yeah, exactly.
Idle irukku.
Even in Yarukagilum Bayama. Yeah. Na ri na 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 ta Yarukagilum Bayama Summa Sollatum Yarukagilum Bayama Summa Sollatum Yarukagilum Bayama Summa Sollatum Yarukagilum Bayama Summa Sollatum Yarukagilum காழிலும் பயமா சும்மா சொல்லட்டும் யாரு காழிலும் பயமா சும்மா சொல்லட்டும் அதிலென்ன ரகசியமா சும்மா சொல்லட்டும் அதிலென்ன ரகசியமா சும்மா சொல்லட்டும் அதிலென்ன ரகசியமா போருக்குள் விஜயனன் மோடி லிங்கருரை போருக்குள் விஜயனன் மோடி லிங்கருரை போருக்குள் விஜயனன் மோடி லிங்கருரை ஓருக்குள் விஜயனன் போகம் கிடைத்ததெந்தன் யோகம் அல்லவோ பெண்ணே 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 யாரு காழிலும் பயமா சும்மா சொல்லட்டும் அதிலென்ன ரகசியமா நானே சம்மதித்தால் மற்றவர்க்கென்ன நஷ்டி நானே சம்மதித்தால் மற்றவர்க்கென்ன நஷ்டி நானே சம்மதித்தால் மற்றவர்க்கென்ன நஷ்டி நானே சம்மதித்தால் மற்றவர்க்கென்ன நஷ்டி ராஜாங்கமாகியே யார் சொல்வரடி ராஜாங்கமாகியே யார் சொல்வரடி மானே மத யானை மேல் ஏறியும் நீட்டி மானே வாசல் நூறைய வேணு பலேகட்டி வாசல் நூறைய வேணு பலேகட்டி வாசல் நூறைய வேணு பலேகட்டி வசீகரமுள்ள புருஷனை சார்ந்தேன் சேர்ந்தேனதில் என்ன வசீகரமுள்ள வசீகரமுள்ள புருஷனை சார்ந்தேன் சேர்ந்தேனதில் என்ன இசகு பண்ணேனடி விஷயிலவரவர் காசு கூசன ஈசும் அசுவை என்னடி யாரு காரிலும் பயமா சும்மா சொல்லட்டும் அதிலென்ன ரகசியமா சும்மா சொல்லட்டும் அதிலென்ன ரகசியமா என்ன ஒரு பேகடா இல்லையா? ஸோ அந்த of course you would have noticed all the vibratos that are அந்த அது ஒரு தரம் maybe if you can rajanga on the
yeah, it's such a hard sangati on so
So the beauty of all the different types of ma in some versions of their recordings I've also heard just rajanga just as anuswaram also they
adhe mari yeah they do both sometimes.
They do both, exactly.
There's a lot of variation in this padam. We had a long discussion about what sangatis we should keep as the base sangatis and which ones are so there are certain ones they do in everything and then even adil like
they have done that as well. Sung it that way. Of course the begada approach for in their approach begada danisa phrase is you know usually they will have at least
the rajanga magi ad evlo irukku
that's it yeah அது வந்து one or two loops as it goes lot of that
it depends on how much you odik
exactly depends on how much yeah my guru used to say it's very hard to sing like two people together to sing or
because everyone will have their own
they'll have their own tendencies to like stretch and ultimately the melody is so important here even that Vasigara that line right Vasigaramulla that anuswaram and all is so beautiful you won't find that kind of approach in other
and one thing in violin that's very easy to do is easy to do that rather than even that pa and the sa.
Correct.
It's very
Correct.
intuitive
Correct.
to not slide,
do that
any
glide.
gamakam,
Correct.
especially on the violin. So like, it's more intuitive than. That's very. It's not an intuitive thing for the violin.
Right. And then another thing that you have to keep in mind when you're playing the violin is where the syllables fall, because that you'll have to give some emphasis to show the syllable, right? Versus there is a difference there.
That comes in the bowing more.
It comes in the bowing. Right? So those things are so important to note anyway. So that was the Begada Padam. Do you have any other observations that during your learning of this that
the Allavo. Not, yeah, even in Sahana we do a lot of, in Aduthathu Sahana Dana, you'll see it a lot. That is not very intuitive.
Correct.
Then silence.
Yeah, the way they have constructed these padams is just amazing. Yeah, someone has like
and the thing is, now when you sing a Nadopasana, Lokavana, or even a Suruti, these kind of ragams, you kind of naturally do it.
Exactly.
Even in Shri Venkatagirisham, I found myself, I don't know if I want to do it or not, that's different. But I found myself doing like Shri Venkata, the ball apdiye varudha, the way I can.
Correct.
It just comes.
Right. It will be very natural.
It just kind of happens.
And you will realize that those are only building on to what you have learned, right?
Yeah,
they are not like changing or they are not taking it away. It will build on a lot. So this approach has its unique benefits, the spillover benefits, right? Economists will call it externalities or spillover benefits. It's unbelievable. Anyway, so that was the Begada Padam. At some point, I hope to listen to Kamalakiran play Yala Padari. That is the ultimate, one of the ultimate goal, right?
The second Padam I've heard. First Padam, of course, as most people, I think.
Moratopu
first and Yala Padari second.
Yala Padari, correct. They have there is something that will,
to those two.
Yeah, something to those two. Even that Payyada and Ninjuchi.
Those will be very tough, actually, because of the Madhyama Shruti. Makes it much
you'll have to
tougher.
Yeah, but once you have, so you have learnt Dalachukonte, right? Yeah, once you start learning those, then I think
and Saki Prana.
Exactly, Saki Prana you have learnt, and then Hastivadana you will work on sometime. So then you'll get a sense for how to approach. Yeah, that is why you have to. It is better to learn these compositions step by step. I know we all fall for these compositions when we first listen to Moratopu and Yala Padari, but if you expect that on day one, that is going to be really hard. But the other thing is,
you see how much there is here itself.
Yeah, there is so much to do. Exactly, so much to learn,
which becomes apparent later on, not in the very beginning.
Exactly.
Because seemingly it was all very easy in the very beginning. Like you think it's easy because I've heard these compositions so many times. Oh, Yarikagidum. I know it, but you don't really actually. That's what I'm saying. Your brain translates it in a different way.
Right. And that is one thing I will note about a lot of approach to enjoying and rasikatvam. That is sort of like, I would say, sort of prevalent, at least from my observation. We tend to sort of satisfies. You know the word satisfies? It's the economists use it again. I don't know why I'm using a lot of economic jargon, but economists use that jargon. So it's enough அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி. So instead of fully trying to
this is
more than enough.
Yeah, close enough. Yeah.
So this even for rasikatvam and for enjoying, we tend to like, especially musicians and as musical learners. Yeah. No. We tend to satisfy even with the recording. More than enough. I just listen to it and this is okay. I will take these phrases and try to imbibe them in my singing or playing. So that way of learning has its
doesn't work as much.
Yeah, it is a little bit
because
limited.
what ends up happening is you take all the superficial elements, or you take it and apply it in a very superficial way rather than actually imbibing it.
Right, and that
okay,
takes
Saverila Gandharam kammiya irukano and Nishadam kammiya irukano is all you'll take from it, more than likely.
Exactly. And so like deep thinking, and so I would call it immersion, right, Kamal?
Yeah.
At some point, if a student that is interested in this approach and style of singing, no matter this, for anything you do, if you want to do it properly, you have to immerse yourself. You have to give up certain things. No pain, no gain, right? To be able to get here. In that regard, I must congratulate Kamal, who is making the time to actually, learn these compositions and think about them. And it takes time. Different people take time depending on where they are in their life and all that. It can take 3 to 4 years to get there, or also take even a longer period. So, but the goal is to keep that learning process going. And even as a musician, when you keep singing and singing, there are so many things you observe about them as you go. That is also very fascinating about these compositions. Anyway, so with that, we will present our last composition. So I will ask Kamal for an option. Do we want to do Iniyanna Pechi right after Begala, or you want to do Vani Pundu instead? Vani Pundu.
It's been a while, but
it's been a while. Let's do Vani Pundu, which is a javali in the Talam, Rupakam, Kannada Ragam. It is a very nice, you'll see a composition rich with all the Kannada phrases, a very nice lesson in Kannada, right, in itself. In fact, in Kannada, this family, I think it is worth listening to their Sukhiyavaru in particular.
There's a lot of less ripaga. Ripaga is not as often heard.
Yeah. In
if
fact,
not at all.
In fact, in their Sukhiyavaru, only the Dhanamma family and Maduramani is what I've heard. That Ma, the importance to Ma in their version of Kannada.
Most of the compositions, if you see, even Neranamiti, with the exception of the first Neranamiti, you don't get Ripaga much.
A lot of it is Sarigamada.
Sarigamada, avladhan jasti.
Right. In fact, another important composition from their repertoire is Shri Narada. We should, if you have not worked
I've learnt it, but not in.
You should either listen to it or take the good things from here. Shri Narada Nada Sarasi Ruha Bringa Shubhaga. In fact, there is a Veena Dhanammal recording itself.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. Shri Narada Nada Sarasi Ruha Bringa Shubhaga. Shri Narada. I'm sure it must have been developed from here. So it has a lot of unique phrases, that one as well. Anyway, so for now we will do Vani Pundu.
I might be a little rusty, it's been a while, but let's see.
Vani Pundu Salubadane, Vani Pundu Salubadane, Vani Pundu Salubadane, Vanidhammaniyala Vani Pundu Salubadane, Vanidhammaniyala Vani Pundu Salubadane, Vanidhammaniyala Vani Pundu Salubadane, Vanidhammaniyala Vani Pundu Salubadane. Sanamata velladani Sanamata velladani Sanamata lelladani sana mata 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 lelladani sadanane sadamanu chudundadi dani sadanane sadamanu chudundadi dani sadaname sadamanu chudundadi dani sadaname sadamanu chudundadi vani pundu salubadane கமவில் துடையு அம்மூல போட்டுள்ள கமவில் துடையு அம்மூல போட்டுன கம்மவில் துடையு அம்மூல போட்டுன கம்மவில் துடையு அம்மூல போட்டுன கம்மவில் துடையு அம்மூல போட்டுன கம்மவில் துடையு அம்மூல போட்டுன ரொம்முல நாடேன கமவ்ரசிச்சின ரொம்முன நாடேன கமவ்ரசிச்சின ரொம்முன நாடேன கமவ்ரசிச்சின ரொம்முன நாடேன கமவ்ரசிச்சின கொம்மநம்பி வேகத்தோடி கொம்மநம்பி வேகத்தோடி தென்மனில் நேதானிப்பும் தானி தென்மனில் நேதானிப்பும் மணி வல்கின தானி தென்மனில் நேதானிப்பும் மணி வல்கின தானி தென்மனில் நேதானி பும்மணி வல்கின தானி தென்மனில் நேதானி பும்மணி வல்கின வாணி புந்து சலுபதனே வனித மணியலவாணி புந்து சலுபதனே வனித மணியலவாணி புந்து சலுபதனே So much to take here. Even that all this they have done. Yeah.
அதுக்கப்புறம்
glide. Yeah. In fact, one of the other things that Kamal has worked on is that Naninna Dhyana in Kannada. Right? That is a stamp of Vishwasar. There is a rendition of Muktama as well. But Vishwasar's version is what I have learnt, and yeah, it's very very poignant, right? And but one thing to take from Muktama's rendition is that she sings it in Madhyama Shruti, which is so beautiful. But there is one place in that composition that goes very high. So it's quite hard to sing it. But even with the normal Shruti, that composition gives a mystery and vibration, right? Dhyana doliralu naninna dhyana doliralu ranga naninna dhyana doliralu ranga naninna. That a pause after that. Ranga naninna dhyana doliralu hina manava rena hina manava rena hina manava rena hina manava rena mada ballaro ranga naninna dhyana doliralu. நம்ம பாடுவோம், முக்தமா பாடுவோம் அந்த correct. So much anyway. So this is a, this approach is really a as I mentioned, it's an ocean. Just like an ocean, it has lot of like calmness, it has silence. At the same time, it can have.
Today we didn't do any of those pieces.
We didn't do the aggressive.
There are those.
Yeah. Every chirira and all. Ye papum in their padam. It takes a lot of energy.
One other thing to note is that we've probably sung it a little slower than they usually sing all of these compositions.
Definitely.
Kalapramanam wise.
Yeah.
The reason we do that is so that we can get the details perfectly.
Right.
But they probably sing it slightly. Even the it's just tough to get all those details.
To get those details. So we slow down slightly. There is no doubt. Even yaru in the padams, yaru kailum. Exactly.
Really
even
tough.
in that speed, they have that. They maintain that integrity to all the details that they. The aesthetics that they sort of was a hallmark of their style. Anyway, so with that we will
Vivek asked something here. If you scroll up,
okay.
I don't remember what he would be curious
for the vacha magocherudani, the go vibrato portion. Where do you place the finger? Okay.
Oh, for me, I don't know the song as much, but it's the same vibrato that we've been doing in all of these, right?
Right.
I don't do. Actually, I use this finger. So this finger is traditionally used for ma. I just shake.
Correct.
Is what
just
I'm
getting
doing.
Close.
Rather than, that's not gonna work. If you use both fingers, because ga supports the ma here.
Right.
So one finger approach is better for that.
Right.
Is what
Right. And getting that vibrato even on the voice is so hard, as many will testify. On the violin it is even harder. So one thing I wanted to, I sort of mentioned it early on in the presentation. There is a huge knowledge gap, I would say, which I want to reiterate in terms of, the ability to take these compositions and present them in our traditional instruments. People like Kamalakiran have been sort of like filling that gap, at least for the violin. But it takes a lot of dedicated learning, a lot of time. We should not discount the amount of effort and time Kamal is putting on all of this.
I think the other thing to note, which I'm still figuring out in my own head, but is this distinction between instrumental and vocal music, which we tend to keep, which might not be necessary.
It is absolutely
There's
not
no
necessary.
doubt that there are certain sangatis on the violin that sound probably good, and like you can take that as well and complete. There's a way to make both coexist, but to separate it and say, oh, this is only for vocal and this is only for instrument, I don't think works anymore. Or not. It never worked. It became that for some time,
Correct.
which is why there's this gap.
Exactly. And even in vocal music, a lot of today's like current manodharma techniques are all based on the way violinists have started playing over the years. Like anyway, we won't go that. We'll take that in a separate topic. But yeah, so there is so much to be taken from each other. That is one thing to note. But another important knowledge gap, as I highlighted earlier, is the point about the Veena. So which is the real, like the origin of all of these details. More than the instrument itself, it's a way of thinking that Vainikas have had in the past, and there is a genuine knowledge gap that needs to be addressed, I would say. So that is something for Vainikas and other instrumentalists who are sort of like who have the opportunity to delve into these compositions. They should definitely find a way to get there. And of course, vocal musicians also, the more these compositions are picked up. Of course, I will note that although there is a sort of a message in my speech in the last few minutes about trying to spread this music, I will say that it takes a lot of time, and it is also like even the learner has to get to a particular level to be able to imbibe all of this. And
I think the other thing is that it's not necessarily concert oriented.
You
don't have to say. I think a lot of learning goes and practicing nowadays goes towards concert presentation.
Correct.
Which is not bad, because we all give a lot more concerts and that's all fine.
Correct.
But just learning this without you knowing, it'll automatically like seep into the concerts. You don't have to make like a special effort.
Exactly.
I mean, other than maybe sing one of these compositions. Even in one concert, if you sing one of these compositions itself, it's a big deal. But more than that, all the other spillover benefits that you get, like discipline, just the focus on the shruti. Focus, like you need so much focus to be able to sing this. So all that focus, all that helps a lot. I think that lack of a direct correlation to a concert is actually a really good thing, because music can become more of an approach rather than just, okay, I have to mug up these things for a concert and sing it or whatever, right? This is more just an overall approach that over time makes some small kind of
this is one
presence.
This is definitely one approach or style, I would say, won't work with checking the box. Like you can't say, okay, I learned this, done. I've done this, done. It doesn't work that way. You have to keep singing over time. Every year, with personal experience, I can say stalwarts have said it. I'm just repeating. There is so much to learn and imbibe from them with every passing moment of our musical journey. Anyway, so on that note, I would like to thank everyone for spending the time with us and listening to this
and
presentation.
Thank you, Gokul Anna, for spreading this for all of us, like for all of us in the Padam session. I will say, even because I've known Gokul Anna for maybe like since 2012 now, I see a difference in how he used to sing this in 2012 versus now, which is saying something, right? And he's learned directly from Kalyani. I mean, so it's like a testament that this keeps on growing on you.
It keeps growing.
And it's so, of course, kind of Gokul Anna to spread this for all of us. So.
I mean, all I can say is, I've got the great. We all are blessed to have been, first of all, we should be really blessed to be able to listen to this music and enjoy it. And then even get that inspiration within us to say, okay, I want to learn this. That itself is a big deal, I would say. And then the bigger deal, I think, is that, you find the right association and find the right people. So I was very blessed to find my guru, Srimati Kalyani Sharma in Bombay. And then when I came to the US, Balu sir, who sort of like helped fill the gaps in many of the composition repertoire.
And then you just sang it again and again, right?
Yes, singing again and again, that is definitely, just really an important thing to do. And as I told you, immersion is the key. right? And you are sort of doing a little bit of that already, although it is challenging once you grow older. But you have to
Just
find the way
challenging
to do
as
it.
violinists.
No,
That's the
not only as
hardest
a
thing.
violinist, right? Even as life, you become
yeah,
your
of
other
course.
things
But
start.
I'm not
coming
even
into-
thinking of other things. Even musically, I'm
Right.
gonna go to India for like 2 months and play for
Right.
so many styles.
Right.
And having
then you
this
have
as a
to-
foundation, it's gonna be
It is hard.
something. But
It
it's
is
good.
hard.
It's
Yeah.
a lot
But
of good things.
but as a violinist, that is one flexibility you have developed over age.
yeah, of course.
Right, to be able to like have that
Hone in on
different
this,
frames of mind,
course.
which I would say personally I won't have. So yeah, which is why I don't probably even listen to many other approaches, so as not to get too influenced by anything I listen. So I'm very careful even with that. But that is my own limitation, I would say. But not everyone has to be like that. But that is a strength you possess. So anyway, so with that again, let me thank everyone for spending the time with us.
Thank you.
And
And
we will
we'll
see
do a
you.
part 2 at some
we'll
point.
try and do a part 2. I must also note that in this session, Kamalakiran, Vivek, and Vignesh, and now Shiva, Ramamurthy, and all.
Shiva is there. There are
all
people
learning.
there, so
Yeah.
we'll include more people
We'll
next
include
time
more
and,
people and
do something.
keep spreading this the philosophy of this approach.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Namaskar.
Thank you so much.